Hi, everybody. I'm Debbie Kramer. I'm the Accessible Technology and Government Documents Librarian here at Colgate University. Today, I'm going to give you some information about doing research for your Religions of Resistance research project. I'm just going to start out. I have the homepage up. To find the library's homepage, you can either just Google Colgate Libraries or go to col.colgate.edu. I want to point out that we do have some important information in this little information box up here at the top of the page, including what our hours are. They keep kind of adjusting them. Um, I think we're now open until midnight, possibly. I think so. Um, I also want to point out that we have FAQs on a lot of information. We do have contactless book pickup, um, information about ILL and some of the issues that are going on with that right now. I want to also just point out really quickly the great big search box on the homepage. I'm probably going to refer to it several times as I'm speaking to you. Um, it's like it doesn't really have a name, so I call it the great big search box, or the big search box in the homepage, or the homepage search box, something like that. Some people might call it summon. We have one librarian who likes calling it searchy McSearch face. So whatever you want pretty much means the same thing. It's basically this kind of like search overlay. So it's connecting, the search box connects to our library catalog. So it searches what books we have, streaming video, other book and DVD video collections. It's searching a number of our general library databases, so like Academic Search Premier, JSTOR. It's searching a number of our full text journals. It's searching encyclopedias, ebooks. It searches a bunch of stuff. Um, so if you just want to kind of get kind of like a general idea of what kind of research is published on a particular topic, this can be a really good place to start. But I'm just going to scroll down a little bit more, and I'm going to go and get into the course and subject guides page. So this page, it just takes you to our resource guide homepage. We have three different types of guides. There's the course guides, which are developed by librarians specifically working with professors to support their classes and the research projects. There's subject guides that cover majors, minors, programs here at Colgate. And then we also have topic guides, which is kind of like everything else thrown in here. So there's information on how to do annotated bibliographies, citation style guides, finding government documents, all sorts of different things. But what we're going to look at is the course guide for this particular class. I have it down here underneath LGBT/ALST 242, Religions of Resistance. And this should also be linked from your Moodle page in your class. So this is kind of the resource guide. Again, I included a few links to the library's hours, FAQ page, as well as if you want to look at floor plans. We also have virtual tours of the library if you're interested. This just has a few resources that might kind of help you along, help you get started. I mostly want to point out on this page this lovely picture of me over here. Uh, Underneath it, there's information about how to contact me. There's the email me button, as well as my email address. If at any time you're having problems, feel free to just reach out to me and ask me a question. Definitely don't spend 6 hours tearing your hair out trying to find this kind of stuff. When you start getting frustrated, that's when you should go ahead and reach out and ask for some help. So you can email me at dkramer@colgate.edu, or DKRAHMER@colgate.edu. We also have this great big Book Now button. What this does is it connects you directly to my calendar so you can see times when I'm available, and you can actually set up a 30-minute appointment with me. I really suggest doing the emails because I can do the emails from anywhere. I'm not always in my home office. Uh, I am working remotely for this fall. So I don't know what's happening for the spring yet. But, if you email me, I can answer it, whenever I have access to the internet. When you set up a appointment, it's all going to be on Zoom, so I kind of need to be in a physical space and be able to work with you. So it's your choice. You can choose whichever one you want. Email's just probably going to be a little bit faster. So I'm going to go ahead and show off some of the other tabs that we have. This very first one, I believe you're using Chicago style guides. So what this page is, we created this because the libraries, we get so many questions on citations. So we created this guide that shows both the Chicago note style as well as the author date format. And this gives example of what your notes for the note style or the in-text parenthetical citations are supposed to look like within your paper, as well as what your bibliography should look like in the style format. And we have all different types of books, including, sacred or religious texts, journal articles, newspaper articles, even how to cite artwork, music, podcasts, Twitter, Facebook, all sorts of different things. We have examples of these on this guide, and it just shows you, again, the end text as well as what the bibliography should be. There are also a number of extra little bits of information contained within the page. So this can be incredibly helpful when you're trying to finish out your paper or putting together your annotated bibliography. So now I'm going to skip all the way back over to our encyclopedia page. So this has just a number of subject-specific encyclopedias. The reason that I like bringing these up is because these are written by experts in the field. So you can often use these to, number one, you get the overview because encyclopedias tend to be summaries of topics, but they're overviews written by people who know what they're talking about. So it's really, really going to be well informed. They often have citations of where they got their information from. And if they don't have citations, they often have further reading collections. And these are often like the major articles, books in this particular subject area on that particular topic. So this can really help you locate who are the big scholars who are talking about something, as well as leading you to other information. So I have some religion encyclopedias, I have some anthropology encyclopedias, and I also included LGBTQ studies encyclopedias within this. One that I want to point out that might be really helpful, especially for this class, the Cambridge History of Religions in Latin America. It actually has 2 chapters, one chapter only on African diaspora religions, and then also one on Afro-Caribbean religions. So these might really have some good resources. So I can highly, check it out. It's always worth taking a look. Doesn't hurt anything. Um, so now I'm just going to go over to the books and subject terms tab. It has a bit of this information box. I'm not going to read the information box out to you. You can read that yourself when you have some time. But basically, one of the reasons that I like to include this tab and include this information in any kind of searching is that there's a number of ways that you can do searches. And the way that you're usually used to doing searches is you type something in, you get something out. It's doing a basic keyword search. This is the default for most databases. This is basically what Google does, is that it looks for whatever terms that you put in. It looks to find them, in the title of the article, in the author, in the abstract, in the full text of the article, within book chapters. It has access to that information. It's looking for those terms appearing anywhere. Subject headings, on the other hand, these are very specific. So these are actually assigned by people who have read the article, are familiar with the article. Sometimes they're even assigned by the authors themselves. They come up with their own subject headings. They mean very, very specific things. And they mean specific things to different databases. So using subject headings, if you find an article that you really like, so you use keyword terms and, you had 10,000 hits and you found one article out of that 10,000 that actually made sense and really works with your particular topic, you can then look to see what that article uses or that book uses as subject headings to find other things that are going to be on that exact same topic. One of the nicest things about subject headings is geographic locations, um, other things like that. An example I use a lot is, India can be a country or India can be a person's name. And so if you search India as a keyword, it could be finding somebody whose name is India. Um, but if you search it as a subject heading, that article, that book has to be on India itself. It also saves you from those times where you might find an article where maybe it mentions in passing in the opening paragraph something about Haiti, but the rest of the article isn't even about Haiti, it's about the UK. And that's not what you're looking for. So subject headings can save you from coming up with some of those really kind of irrelevant articles. But the other side of subject headings is they're developed not by practitioners and not even necessarily experts in Caribbean, African-derived religions. They're not necessarily experts in that. They would be experts in religion, or maybe they're experts in gender, or maybe they're experts in something else. So some of the times you're going to come across a lot of subject headings that are not going to be very accurate, or at least not exactly what you were thinking that the subject heading would be. For example, the one that I always come across is this Afro-Caribbean cults. Whenever I come across cults as a way of referring to religion, I always kind of like stop a little bit because I'm like, does that mean cults the way I would define it? Or does that mean the way that it's it's specifically defined, within this particular subject area? Or does it mean, any religion that is not Christianity? So subject headings can be really good, but they can also really kind of demonstrate a lot of bias. And it's not necessarily going to be the bias of a particular author. Another one to really point out is that it took until 2016 or 2018, something like that. It was fairly recent. Before the Library of Congress, which is what we get our subject headings for our library catalog from, they changed voodoo as a subject heading from VOODOO to VODOU, which is much more preferred heading. So if you're doing any kind of research on voodoo, you're going to probably try to have to search VOODOO. Um, these are just because it's most likely not a database that is focusing 100% on voodoo. Or even Afro-Caribbean religions. It could be a database that's, like a very general database, like Academic Search Premier, JSTOR. So you do kind of like have to play around with these subject headings. So this page is also titled books. One of the reasons that I titled it is because I have all these possible subject headings. Every single one of these leads to our library catalog. So let's go ahead and click on the Afro-Caribbean cults just to see what comes up. And so you can see here, it has the general subject heading Afro-Caribbean cults. There's 21 books within that. They also break it down into Afro-Caribbean cults in Cuba, terminology, Jamaica, and the United States. I really like this one. It's very specific. Afro-Caribbean cults, homosexuality, religious aspects. Only has one book within it, but that's a really good subject heading. the other side of the subject headings, especially if you're doing queer trans studies, is a lot of our databases still use homosexuality as the subject term, or even within the text of the text of the article. So if you're looking for something on like Afro-Caribbean queer people and Afro-Caribbean cult, um, you're going to probably have to also try out the term homosexuality to see what comes up with it. But I'm going to go ahead and click on that one just so we can kind of see. So you can see this one, if I did queer as a keyword, this one would have came up. So again, downside of using subject headings. But I also know if I want other books that are specifically about Creole spiritual traditions, African-inspired traditions from the Caribbean, I can try this Afro-Caribbean cults as my subject term. So I'm just going to return back to our guide page here. So all this information is contained within here. And you can use, Cuban Santeria, the Orisha, Creole, sex, Caribbean, that means sexuality in this particular library catalog, the Caribbean area. All these different kind of search terms can help you find materials that can get you closer to it. So this specifically on books, but you can also use these subject headings for journal articles. So I'm just going to click on the articles tab. So we have a ton of journal article databases. This view all databases link takes you to, I think it says like 455, but I think some of those are actually encyclopedias and not journal article databases. So I think in reality, it's like 350 to 400, but that's a heck of a lot of databases. And every single one of these databases has materials within it that does exist in other databases or even doesn't exist in databases. So one of the things you're going to come across in searching is that sometimes you're going to see the exact same article 15 different times. And other places, the only way you would find a particular article is because you went into a particular database. So don't just try one search and give up on it. Keep looking around, keep trying a few things. So there's a lot of information on this page. So I have the general kind of databases that we have, the link to the Great Big Search Box, JSTOR, Academic Search, and Project Muse. Very general. They cover just, everything, neuroscience, the arts, absolutely everything. I also have subject databases on this particular list, and I'll go over these in a moment. I also have a link so that you can browse through the full text of some of the journals in queer studies, simply because sometimes looking up for anything in queer and trans studies when it deals, especially with religion, can be a little bit difficult sometimes. So this could kind of help you, especially if you're looking for subjects within queer and trans studies, or even about some gender study areas. These particular journals might help you. And I also have a link to the Journal Finder, also sometimes called the article linker. This is really great if your professor says, oh, this one journal has, they've been doing a really great series on blah, 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 and you should go take a look at it. And so what you can do is you could use the Journal Finder to find out, do we have the full text of that particular journal? So you can search through it and read the full text of those articles. So I'm going to come back up here and just talk about some of these subject-specific databases. So the ATLA Religion Database, this can be really good. I do want to point out it goes back to 1949 to present. And something you're going to come across, and I'm sure you've already talked about this in class, but academia, especially English language, Western American, UK, kind of British academia tends to be very, very white, very patriarchal. So At Love Religion database, you're going to do some searches and you're going to come across articles where, it's some random dude who thought that non-Christian religions were really interesting. And so he's writing, kind of not fully sensationalist because these are going to be academic, but those ones where you're like, you can, those articles where you can see the bias of the author just like dripping off of the page. So at Love Religion, because it covers this entire time period, you're going to come across things with very clear biases, as well as some subtle biases. But you're also going to find, especially in more recent years, a lot more things that are including kind of a practitioner model, or looking at people who are practitioner um, community models of research. So actually have the perspectives, the beliefs, and looking at things from the perspective of people who are actually practitioners of particular religions, as opposed to somebody from the outside who is from a different religion giving a kind of top down, let's take a look at these people dancing kind of thing. Ooh, isn't this cool? Um, so at Live Religion Database, definitely worth searching. I love Gender Watch. Anything you're doing that deals with gender or sexuality, Gender Watch is a really good one, because this one tends to, it doesn't focus only on scholarly materials. It focuses a lot on, it includes newsletters and other kind of informal scholarship that people have done. So you can get, a really broad kind of feeling for a particular topic. Women's Studies International tends to be a lot more academic, focused on feminist or womanist research. Um, so again, anything dealing with gender, these ones are good. Sociological Abstracts Online and International Bibliography of the Social Sciences. These are very heavy social science databases. Um, so if you're really looking for a very academic look, ethnographic look, something that's very, very uh, steeped, I guess, in academia, these are two really good databases to kind of look at it, get those perspectives. I always like to point out PsycInfo. It's not just psychology, mental illness. This is, people's beliefs, their feelings, their thoughts, their behaviors, all of these kind of things, which can often be influenced by religion. So PsycInfo can be a really good one, especially if part of what you're searching is kind of like, what do people feel? How does this influence, their daily life, the way that they approach medicine or other kind of topics. Happy Online and Informe Academico. These two are have a lot of articles that are in Spanish language, so I can highly suggest it if you're doing anything on Latin America, Caribbean, especially Spanish language, Portuguese language materials. But it also helps that you can actually read Spanish and Portuguese. Historical Abstracts. This one is just a general history database. It covers world history, excluding the United States and Canada. So this one could be a good one if you're looking for a more historical perspective. The International African Bibliography, I love this collection. I do. It's got some really great stuff in it. One of the difficulties you're going to have is that it is a bibliography. It is basically, the citation, maybe a few subject headings. If you're lucky, you might have the abstract, but it tends to just have that kind of citation information. Um, so it can be a little bit harder to search. You need to be a lot more aware of like what subject terms particular disciplines are using, and try out like different spellings and things. But it's worth the effort. I can highly suggest going this going with International African Bibliography, as well as HLAS, the Handbook of Latin American Studies. It's another bibliography, but again, you're going to get some really good stuff. And both of these have materials that you're not going to find in other databases. So, do take a chance with them and figure out, um, use them for your kind of searching and take a look at stuff. So I'm just going to do a couple of example searches. Um, I'm just going to go into the great big search box simply because it's a really good example of basically how most of our databases function. And I had a topic. Let's go gender and Haitian voodoo. So I'm going to go ahead and just type in Haitian. You can even see how it suggests different spellings and things, but I'm going to go with the spelling and gender and do a search. So again, this, because it's a great big search box, it's looking at everything all over the place. So it's getting books, journal articles, and all sorts of stuff. So one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to limit it to scholarly peer review. Most of the research you do at Colgate, your faculty are going to say, you're looking for scholarly, peer-reviewed. Sometimes they'll say refereed, and sometimes they'll just say academic materials. They all basically mean that people who are experts in this particular topic have reviewed this article, said that this is good research, it fits in with the discipline, this is well put together. So it's gone through some kind of process so that you at least feel that there is some kind of authority added to the particular articles. So this could be a really good way of cutting out a lot of things. Also, with this particular topic, you are going to be cutting out sometimes things that are from a practitioner perspective or from a non-scholarly perspective. So good and bad with this. If you want to get the widest variety of like journal articles, you can limit it to just journal article as well and skip the scholarly peer reviewed. And if you just want to see what books that we own, you can get rid of scholarly peer reviewed and just search library catalog. But I just want to go ahead and take a look at some of these results that we have here. So we got Voodoo Epistemologies of Transgender. That one looks pretty good. So this has the full text of the article available. As you're doing your bibliographies and things, I do want to warn you that you typically don't want to use just copy paste the URL that comes up in a search box here. In any of our databases, you want to look for something that says permanent link or permalink or something else along those lines. And then the ones you get from this are just like, ugh, look at that. That's so ugly and it's so long. So it's an awful URL, but this will ensure that no matter where you're at, you're always going to be able to get back to this particular article. The problem with a lot of our databases is the URL that appears up at the top of the page here. They're just kind of developed on the fly. And so you do a search on Monday and you come up across some really good articles and you copy paste the URLs and you put them into a document. When you go back to look at it on Thursday, suddenly all those links don't work. And so you're going to lose all that research. You're going to have to try to recreate it again. So if you're ever trying to get an article from any of these, you always want to look for the little permanent link thing. Also, most of our databases have a suggested citation. These are all done by a computer, and computers are only as smart as the information that they get and how they were programmed. So sometimes you'll find that these are incorrect. So you always want to just kind of like review it. Looking at this one very quickly, I'm like, yep, that's Chicago author date style. There's the author, there's the year, there's the title of the article, journal in italics, there's the volume, the issue, and the page numbers. That one looks pretty good. I've seen some of them that are like really, really messed up. So don't just copy paste that, take a look at it and make sure that it's done well. So I'm just going to get back and show you some information about this particular article. I just clicked on more information. And when I was talking about subjects, here's the subject terms that were given to this particular article. You can see songs, you can see transgender persons, listening, gods, sexuality, women's studies, social science, they're all over the place. But you can also use the VOODOO. And again, just because it spells voodoo differently does not mean it's a bad article. It just means, maybe that was the style at the time. So voodoo and other of these might be better subject headings that you might want to use. You can also get the full text of the article just clicking here. Another thing that you can try with any of our databases is look for the advanced search. And the advanced search on this one is hidden underneath the hamburger menu in the upper right hand. That's those three horizontal lines. It's called a hamburger. It's like, bun and a burger in the middle, 3 lines. So I'm just going to click on the hamburger menu and select advanced search. So you can see it took my search and it shows you it's searching every single field, every single thing that it has access to search, and it searched all of these 3 words. So there's a couple of ways that you can play around with this. One of the things you can do is you can always put quotes around a particular thing. So without the quotes, it was searching Haitian anywhere. It was searching voodoo anywhere, and it was searching gender anywhere. By putting the quotes around Haitian voodoo, now it's saying, well, it's focusing just on articles that have the phrase Haitian voodoo. You can also, I'm sorry, my cat just, yeah, go on. Get down. Sorry about that. So you can also do subject search. So let me just clear that out. And let me limit to subject terms that are just Haiti as a location. And then I want voodoo as a keyword. You can even go with the old VOODOO if you want to. And I'm going to add in a third line, and I'm going to put in gender. And so voodoo and gender are being searched everywhere, by Haiti only in the subject terms. So this means my article results, so I went from 129 to 19 articles. These articles have to be on Haiti, otherwise they wouldn't have Haiti as a subject term. So that helps me get something much more smaller. But that also might mean that these are a little bit too specific for what you're looking for. So play around, try some things as subject terms. Maybe you can do voodoo as a subject term instead, and we can go ahead and do. So let's try voodoo as a subject term and gender and see what comes up. I guess it's down to 3 items, and 2 of them look like book reviews. Yeah, 2 of them are book reviews, and one is an article. So you can see how this kind of like gets things down much more specific for you. I'm going to return to the articles tab on the LibGuide. And let's go ahead and check out GenderWatch, simply because I like GenderWatch. And if you're doing a subject such as Haitian voodoo and gender, this would be a good database for it. So you can see it takes you directly into the advanced search. Oops. It has multiple lines, and you can add in more rows. You can limit it to peer review, just like we did in the main search. So we can do Haiti as, I'm going to put it as subjects, and voodoo and gender. Doesn't matter, capitalization, lowercase, doesn't matter. It matches everything. So I remember this one from our previous search. I think that was the very first one on the very first search that we had. But we also have gender and politics in contemporary Haiti. Face of a Haitian Child, Racial Intimacies, Paternalistic Interventions, and Discourses of Deviant Black Motherhood in Transnational Espanol. Bastardly Duppies and Dastardly Dykes, Queer Sexuality and the Supernatural. So you can see this, so we're doing pretty much the same search that we did in Great Big Search Box, and we're getting some overlap, but we're also getting some articles that did not appear in the previous search, things that might be even more relevant to your particular topic. So think about different ways that you can do this. Think about how you can play with subjects and keywords. Take a look at the articles. See what subject terms that they use. See if there might be some better keywords that you can use to help to specify your search a little bit better. And just keep going. And again, if you're having any problems, you're getting frustrated, things just aren't working for you, please reach out to me. You can talk to your professor to get more. I'm not an expert in Afro-Caribbean religions. I'll say that up front, or at least I'll say it at the end because this is almost the end of the video. So I'm not an expert in that, but I'm an expert in doing research, and I'm an expert of knowing how these information systems work. So I can help you kind of navigate and find things. And your professor can help you more with the content, and help you kind of understand things that way. So please, if you have any questions, let me know. Thank you very much for watching. And I hope you have a good rest of the day and good luck with your research.